This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
So there is stonewalling and then there's gray rocking. And while they both have a goal, they're very different with a very different outcome. Let's talk about it. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah. We're still in the month of May. May seems very long. I don't know what it is about May. It's very, weird. But it seems much longer than April. And it's still Mental Health Awareness Month. And there's still things just lifing. Life is doing its thing. I'm looking at my plant right now, and when I tell you, she has not been doing well. Or she's stressing me out. I think that's what it's coming down to. Oh man, it's so interesting. Just observing things that are important to you and observing people that are important to you. And just seeing certain behavior patterns or just certain changes is very interesting. And funny enough, that was not I was not planning on talking about my plant just now and how it ties into this. But, I was throughout the week or constant, patterns I've noticed in terms of communication or lack thereof, or just how relationship dynamics. There is this very interesting concept called stonewalling. And stonewalling usually is a concept of manipulation, right? Stonewalling, what it does is it tries to control a person, right? It does certain things to get a result. So the silent treatment, for example, that could be a concept of stonewalling. And the silent treatment can be used in a relationship that you actually want to keep, right? You use that to get an exchange or to have a need met from the person that you don't feel the most satisfied with or pleased with, right? So you stonewall. And what stonewalling does is it starts to control the environment. It controls the narrative, right? That person now is trying to get their validation from you, right? When you stonewall. It's kind of like this person who is not looking to be responsive, receptive, communicative, any of those things that kind of allow there to be an even exchange or a smooth path for communication or growth or change or just something positive, right? You stonewall. And a lot of times people do this when they are upset, right? If I'm upset about something, instead of me communicating, I'll stonewall. And stonewall should be a communicator to you that I'm angry and I'm upset. And my expectation is that you figure it out, right? You were supposed to just get it, or you're supposed to ask me what's wrong. You're supposed to, You are supposed to do things that I want you to do in order for me to feel valued, loved, or cared for by you. That's what stonewalling usually does. That's the goal for it. And then you have gray rocking, which is kind of like, stonewalling is manipulation, right? It's a manipulative tactic that people use to get their need met in some way, shape, or form. And they know that it works because, in the past has gotten them the results that they've desired. When it comes to gray rocking is not having an emotional response to someone who is manipulative. Let's say, the big N, right? People like to, throw narcissism around, but you can find gray rocking usually being used as a coping tactic when you are in a relationship with someone who's highly manipulative, right? And they're actively manipulative, right? They'll say certain things, they will do certain things to get a response out of you. And when you gray rock, you remove emotions from how you respond, so this person is not aware of how they are impacting you. Because sometimes when people know that they are doing certain things to affect you, they'll continue to do it because they know this gets a rise out of you. They'll say certain things, they'll do certain things at certain points in time. They'll treat you a certain way because they know, oh, this bothers this person, so this is what I'm going to use moving forward, right? So you gray rock, okay? You gray rock. And it truly is important to understand the difference, because sometimes we ourselves may think we're doing one thing, but it might be something else, and it's important to just understand the difference for yourself if you are looking to be more of an intentional person in your relationships. And if you are a stonewaller, and you're looking to get it requires intention, right? What your goal is, right? When we stonewall, somebody who is emotionally abusive can use that tactic, to be a stonewaller, right? Because if I stonewall you, then it becomes you now defending yourself or trying to get a response from me, and the dynamic shift, right? It's all games and it's tactics. When you gray rock, you're usually like, yeah, I'm not going to engage with this in any capacity. So it's like, I'll be flat, right? I'll gray rock. And it's a protective mechanism, right? And, I was talking to some people over the weekend. We were discussing relationship dynamics and, how certain times people operate in a certain way, and then they are upset about how you respond to their behavior, right? So they now make it as so that you're offending them, right? A lot of times people never look at what has led to the result of the relationship. They look at the fact that you just responded to their mistreatment or their disrespect. And that in itself could be seen as this thing. This is why I believe when sometimes people talk about the importance of communication, it's almost like you demand a certain level of work from other people. Like, people have to debrief you on your behavior. People have to continue to engage in a relationship with you that they no longer desire because of how you treat them. And for you, it's like, or for that person, it's more work on the other person's end that they are not responsible for. Right? A lot of times when people say you should just communicate, they're not looking for communication. They're just looking to be combative or continue a certain dynamic. All right. And if you are doing the work, then they never have to. Then they never have to. Again, stonewalling is used to get something from another person. Gray rocking is used to remove yourself from a situation, even if it's emotionally, because sometimes you can't remove yourself right away from an abusive situation or circumstances, right? So you have to figure out different tactics until you can. And it's a hard dynamic, it's a challenging dynamic to be immersed in, but you find ways. And sometimes when we are emotionally charged and people know that they can treat us a certain way, or they know what bothers us, they'll use that to get a reaction from us and then further justify what they've already done. Okay?
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouthwatering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
It's truly important to recognize the difference because, again, stonewalling sometimes can look like, well, that person should just get it, or they should know I'm upset, so they should come talk to me. And one thing I don't really subscribe to is the whole, well, if a person hasn't told me what the problem is, then there isn't a problem. And I think sometimes there are people who are very manipulative who use that concept, right? Like, until you come talk to me, there isn't a problem, versus I should probably address the situation because there has been a shift in the relationship that I don't like, right? It could go both ways, okay? And sometimes people do really abuse that concept to make themselves feel better about how they may have maneuvered with another person, okay? It was just something I was really thinking about and parsing through because it is a very, it's a delicate dance and it's a sensitive one. And, manipulation can look like a lot of things. And sometimes people pleasers can stonewall after a while. And the reason for stonewalling in that case is because maybe I'm not feeling appreciated. And instead of me asking for what I want, since I'm not used to asking for what I want, since I fear rejection and all these other things, I'll stonewall, right? People reach out to me, I don't respond, or, I kind of create this dynamic where I pull back in such a drastic way to get the attention that I desire, right? And it's so funny. The interesting thing about stonewalling too is like, there is that degree of, if somebody messages you and you see it, you don't have to respond right away. And it's like, well, what is that for? Right? You see their message, you're not responding, but you're still expecting them to reach out to you, right? You're still expecting them to try, and you're also expecting them to understand why you are not responding to them when you're not responding to them, so they can't understand why, right? This is why communication, I think, is so intricate. It's such a delicate dance because it doesn't always mean talking, right? We have so many different and interesting ways that we communicate to other people what we think about them, right? We also communicate to other people how we function, okay? And there's these tactics, and it depends on the person's experiences, the history, right? Some people use stonewalling because they grew up in an environment where their voice was very muted, or they noticed that their parents did that to get reactions out of the other. Like, I need to get something from you, so I'm going to give you the silent treatment until you give me what I want. And since I know that silent treatment works for you, that's going to be our continued pattern of relationship. And then gray rocking could be, okay, well, this household was very turbulent, and if you reacted in a certain way, I'd be met with some kind of, either blunt force or yelling or a consequence. So I gray rock, and you learn to cope, right? It's a coping mechanism. But with that, sometimes there are people who have experienced a lot of stonewalling, and they may be more anxious in certain relationship dynamics where a person doesn't communicate. And the person who doesn't communicate, they're like, yeah, well, I don't see a problem with that. This is just how I live life. Whereas the other person is not okay with it because it's like, this has been my life experience. When somebody ignores me, I feel like I did something wrong, and now it sends me into a frenzy. And it is not necessarily the person's job to fix that. However, we do have responsibility in our relationship dynamics where there can be some compromise. It's like going into work to a job that you've never worked at before. And you tell the boss, well, yeah, I'm not going to do this job because I've never done it before. And you should be okay with that. You lose your job, right? Instead, you say, hey, I don't know this job right now, but I'm going to figure it out so I can keep this job. And the same thing kind of happens in relationships too, where it's like, I may not know these dynamics, but I'm going to do my best to figure it out, right? Because I want to take care of this relationship. This means a lot to me. Sometimes we are so, I think, caught up in our own stuff that we forget that there's a person on a receptive end. We forget that there are other people that are experiencing us in life to the magnitude that we don't have to, right? Which is why we demand a certain level of understanding from people that we are not really taking care of or respecting in return. And if you are in an abusive relationship or you are trying to navigate, and abusive relationships aren't just romantic, friends do it too. You know, the stonewalling and everything like that. You know, it could be a lot of things at play, but you have to work on one. Only thing you can control is your behavior. You can only control your behavior. And when you are sure that you are treating people intentionally, and if you can honestly say that, then you'll be more clear on your goal with what you're doing and also the why. And your relationship dynamics will be more authentic. Now, an authentic relationship doesn't mean you'll have a relationship with this person. It just means that things will be a little bit more clear. A little more clear. So, you know, I just want you to consider the difference between the two and what you may do, right? Are you gray rocking someone or are you stonewalling? Like I said, gray rocking is used to navigate a manipulative relationship. Stonewalling is typically used to be manipulative. And when you are being manipulative, you are stonewalling. It's important to ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is my goal? All right. So just something to think about. If you are on the East Coast, Newark Film Festival is coming up this summer. I will be posting a link for you to submit. If you are a filmmaker or creator and you have a story to tell, you want to get out there, hey, submit, send away. It's going to be a pretty awesome festival. It's taking place in August 9th through 11th. So yeah, get in your submissions. I'll post a link below. Coaching is available. If you guys have ordered a coloring book, they are on their way. I got a large order. So just signing them as they come and getting them out to you guys as soon as possible. But yeah, that's just a little thing to put in your thinking cap and, you know, ways to maneuver a situation. And if you're gray rocking, you know, understand that. Do your best. I know sometimes it's hard to be in those relationship dynamics and it feels like you don't have any resources or any way out, but you deserve a life of happiness, not necessarily a life of hurdles, especially your relationships of all kind. All right. And if you're out there stonewalling, ask yourself, what are you doing it for? Okay. What do you need? All right. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Take flight.